Yo, what's up? It's Julian, aka Delaluz, and today we're gonna talk about following inspiration versus learning techniques. First of all, I wanna say sorry for being gone for a while. I moved, as you can see by my background. Took some time to get used to my new environment here. Had to do some administrative stuff that happens around the turn of the year. But now I'm back and I'm here to talk to you about creative stuff, creative processes, creative ideas, approaches, strategies. I've been thinking a little bit about the format of this channel, and I think a lot of the stuff I talk about is kind of meditative, so I'd be really happy if you could listen to this while you are working on some kind of creative project. No matter if you're sketching, drawing, painting, writing music, maybe not writing a story, that's probably a bit difficult, but even practicing your instrument, I don't care, just to get over that barrier that we sometimes have of starting our creative processes. I want to invite you to just start right now. Do something low maintenance, do something playful, something more flow-based where you don't have to use your thinking mind a lot, and just let my suggestions flow into what you're doing. So, following inspiration versus learning techniques. This is continuing on our conversation on playing versus practicing. Following intuition is when you do what you hopefully all started doing now, and you just go with the flow. You just follow an idea, and maybe while you're doing a brush stroke or writing a melody, you're starting to notice patterns, you're starting to notice possibilities, you're being guided by the creative process itself into discovering new techniques, following patterns, and oftentimes even learning new things about the craft you're doing right now. One example I can give is me playing the piano, freestyling, improvising. When I get into a really playful mood, I do not start to play with a preconceived notion of what I'm gonna play. I'm just kind of doing whatever my fingers are guiding me to do and guiding me to play in that moment. And then after oftentimes just a few seconds, I recognize patterns in my doing, and then I can kind of repeat these patterns and vary the patterns, and then that's something that goes on for a while until I feel like I'm complete with the exploration of that pattern and its variations. And then I start pivoting into something else. That might be a bigger variation on the pattern that is already established, or it might again go back to the same thing I did at the beginning. Simply dropping all preconceived notions of what I'm supposed to do, what I have to do, and simply starting to play something not quite meaningless, but in a way meaningless, something without structure, something without preconception, and letting myself be surprised by what's happening and what new variations and patterns I can discover within that. And I think this is an amazing approach to creating because, as I already touched upon, you do discover new ideas, you do discover new ways of going about creating. You are being taught as you're creating in a way, which is a very great feeling to have, first of all, and also it's something that ultimately will develop you further as an artist. On the other hand, on the other side of that is the learning of techniques. At the piano, for example, that would be playing scales or playing chord progressions, learning music theory and learning how to translate that to the instrument. When it comes to drawing, you might learn how to shade, and you are going to draw and paint a couple of pictures which focus mostly on shading. Now this is something that is going to be very cerebral, very thinking focused, and it's something that takes a different kind of focus than just going with the flow and looking for patterns as they emerge. Now, of course, while you're practicing and learning a technique, you can still look at the patterns that are happening and kind of look into why these are working and why not, and you should be doing that, don't get me wrong. Well, at least in my opinion, don't let me tell you what you think. But your main focus in these kinds of sessions is to train, explore, and practice a certain technique that you are trying to acquire. Now, when you have acquired the technique to a certain degree, you will be able to take it into your free flow sessions and just very much unconsciously use it to express yourself freely, flowingly in that moment. I think it's important to understand that even if you practice the technique, it doesn't mean that you have mastered it, and it doesn't mean that you have to master it. So you can always go deeper into any technique. If you're learning shading, if you're learning scales, if you're learning harmony, there's always more and more layers of the technique to acquire, and as creatives we sometimes get trapped in thinking we have to perfect one technique before we can actually use it in our creative projects, but it's quite the opposite. Oftentimes it's very useful to acquire a technique to a certain degree, practice with it for a couple days or weeks, and then just going back into free-flowing creation, into following inspiration, and seeing how your process of intuitively creating has shifted now that you have this new technique. And once again, in that process you're going to use the technique, and then you're going to have spontaneous ideas of, oh, what if I use counterbalance color, sorry for my lack of terminology here, but an opposite color for the shading. What if I use two different scales on top of each other? What does that sound like? Just starting to experiment with these concepts without being so rigidly bound by the system you have acquired in the past few days. And then once again, once you've gone quite deep into just exploring that through inspirational flow, you can go back to the technique and look at more advanced concepts, practice these, and go back. So you see it's kind of this back and forth and back and forth. Each of these phases informs the other one. So I hope you could take something from this. I hope you had some fun working on whatever you worked on, and I want to say thank you for listening. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment if you have something to say, and I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.